Hi, everyone. Welcome to the session. This session, my name is Ugo. I'd like to welcome you to my session title, Avoid Misreading 2020-2023 Signals and Realign Your Product Marketing Strategy. Could have been just what the hell happened and what does it mean for your 2024 strategy? Anyway, I want to talk about strategy, looking back at what happened in the last 3 years and to inform your 2024 plans. Welcome and thanks for joining. So first, let me present myself. My name is Hugo Macedo. I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, did college in the 90s, became a professional in the turn of the millennium, and I'm married, I have 2 kids and a dog. I live in sunny Lisbon in Portugal. I'm an engineer by study, but turned marketeer by trade. I'm curious, always curious about humans and how humans behave and how they decide and choose in technology. And I guess that's what drove me to marketing in technology companies. I've over 25 years, what I hope was accumulated wisdom. I worked in many different sectors and many different industries. I've been in fast-moving consumer goods, consulting, startups, scale-ups, and I was VP of marketing, COO, innovation consultant, failed founder, wannabe investor. And nowadays, I'm looking to advise other companies. I'm also investing and building ecosystems. And anyway, enough about me. I'm here to talk about. Let's see. So, you're a product market leader, I heard. So you want to sit at the table. So what does that mean? That means you need to have grown-up conversations, right? When we think about, sit at the table, executive table, boardrooms, what are those conversations at those tables? Those conversations are basically, divided into there are conversations around revenue, about growth, and about costs and efficiency, right? So that's where we need to focus on, right? Where do we connect to these conversations if we want to be in the grown-ups table? And this is a great opportunity because for 2024, the big goal that is being discussed and being defined is actually the combination of these two. Is how do we drive efficient growth? 2024 will be, and probably beyond, will be all around efficient growth. And why is that the thing, right? First of all, we need to understand that, like, we're talking about growth, and this is a hard topic nowadays. Just look at the last 2 years. So in the graphs you see here, we're looking at yearly growth rates, year-on-year quarterly revenue growth rates of public companies in B2B Tech. That's where I'm focusing the analysis here. And you can see in the last 2 years, or more than 2 years, it's been steadily decreasing, decelerating growth. So from a median of 50% year-on-year growth to barely 20% year-on-year growth. So it's a big decline, a big deceleration of growth. So imagine every quarter expecting the additional growth, but that growth is lower and lower and lower, decelerating. So this is a problem. Like when we don't see the turnaround, how this is going to turn around, and this is what's been happening, right? And this is, of course, drives the discussions nowadays, right? And the problem of discussions nowadays is many times, in many places, they're still very shallow, right? And there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of solutions, like, oh, PLG is no longer working. We need new channels. Inbound is not enough. We need outbound. We need to go up market. It's just the economy, or the good old, not good. We need more leads, right? And we need to do better than this, right? Nothing works anymore. All these conversations. There's a lot of opinions. We need to go past this and really understand what happened, because really to define the future, if we don't understand how we got here, how do we know how to get where we want to go, right? If we understand the successes and the failures of the past, how do we know what to choose, where to invest, where to divest in the future, right? What are we going to continue, or are we going to stop? What are we going to start differently, right? So we need to go back and understand what happened in the last few years, and what a crazy years there were. So let's go back to 2020 and start from there and see and kind of revise the film and get my perspective on what happened and how this affected most tech companies in this space. So 2020, it was of course, if you still remember, I'm sure you do, it was a roller coaster year. First, everyone panicked with lockdowns. No one really knew what was going to happen, right? We were stringed at home, and we could barely get out to walk the dog, and suddenly anything that was not essential stopped working, right? And many sales stopped, right? So a lot of companies saw their numbers in March just plummet, right? And because it was not essential for the buyer, for the seller, for anyone, right? And actually, this triggers a lot of fear in terms of what was going to happen the rest of the year. Even some companies went into layoffs. There was messages from investors: look, buckle up. This is going to be a hard deceleration, very fast deceleration of the market. This is going to be, this is frightening. But then what happened? Very quickly, everyone adapts, right? A new world emerged, almost exciting about, we're going remote, online, asynchronous, where we juggle between our personal and professional lives and discuss the brave new world that was emerging, right? Some excitement around it, especially on software companies, on tech companies. Because while some were speculating and discussing this, others were frantically just buying and selling and adopting software to power the new world of work. Because suddenly the world has changed forever, work has changed forever, and we needed software, lots of it. And so tech just had an amazing, almost bipolar year, but they had an amazing end of the year with a boom of sales, and especially in the second half of the year, starting from April onwards. And actually, this continued to 2021. And in 2021, where around the summer, we see an inflection point, because there were several aspects or dynamics that were happening that influenced this inflection point. First, the vaccines. Right? Vaccines started to roll out in the beginning of the year. When we end by mid-year, they're reaching more than 50% of the population, even in countries like US that were not the best benchmark. But it was really, driving vaccines across the population. And what this drove was, people going back to the office, right? So a big back to the office movement. And this was kind of a change in the perception of, did the world really change that much? Or are we going to find here a mix of hybrid, a mix of going some days to the office, some days at home, or really going back? So a lot of companies did go back to the old dynamics. So after all this, this changes a lot. Also, the perception of, by the way, what we decided a year ago, is this still valid? So a year before, so remember 2020, when the idea of the world had changed, a lot of people went and buy software. They bought a lot of software, a lot of licenses, and 1 year after when these contracts are up for renewal, most of it yearly contracts, they think about, are we using all this software? Are we using all the licenses? Do we need them now that people came back to the office? How much do we need them? And you see this starting to affect renewal rates, contraction, and expansions, right? So this is starting to affect growth rates that we will see afterwards, that starting to decline. The decline starts in the summer of 2021, around Q3, and then Q4, and so on of 2021. And at the same time, on the back of this, inflation starts to kick in around the mid-year. Inflation rates starts to kick in due to after the big central bank money injection reaction to the COVID pandemic. And this, of course, affects the economy, affects the demand. Something was changing. 2021 was still a strong year, and we'll see that in the market, but something was changing. Anyway, 2020 still ends up in very high. The market, the valuations, the funding rounds, huge. As we can see in the Nasdaq ends in high. We will see later, or we will know later, that 15th of November was the top, the record high of the Nasdaq during these times, and from then on, we know all went downhill. And that this gets into 2022. And 2022 starts with the war in Ukraine. Of course, we all know 24th of February, the invasion, and this triggers an energy and food disruption that still puts more pressure into inflation. Prices rise, and this, of course, affects the economy. And again, more demand pressure, demand squeeze, the pressure of demand, of buying software, buying technology, and this started to affect, together with the market crash and valuation crash, this starts to affect the companies. They start cutting budgets, start doing layoffs, and all this starts to become a spiral, right? And this spiral is important to understand how this all this is connected, right? Interest rates, inflation, valuations, layoffs, budget cuts, demand, and sales. And for that, I did a big scheme that will connect all these dots, or all these boxes, and I'll try to guide them through all of this. So if you start here on inflation rate, when inflation rate rises, this triggers interest rates, rise of interest rates, and triggers also, of course, affects the general economic downturn. I'm not going to do the economics class here. Actually, I'm not definitely not an expert there, but this creates a demand crash. So depression of demand, less people buying software in this case. So less sales on the part of the company, less revenue, and this puts pressure on the runway, on the available cash of the companies. And they at this point, they can resort on more funding to extend the runways, to extend the cash available, but these markets are closed. VCs are under pressure also because of the interest rates rise, pressured from the LPs on the one hand, and on the portfolios valuations that we saw also crash because of the interest rates and all this phenomenon. So their portfolio also under pressure. So they're not open to invest, inject more money in most of the companies. So the only way, and actually the recipe that is going to be followed for most tech companies, is to cut costs, right? Cut costs that goes into layoffs and cuts budgets, the spending budgets, both in terms of direct spending, in terms of software. This goes and directly affects demand on the rest of the market, and also cuts in the sales and marketing budget. And cut in sales and marketing budget usually something that we don't talk enough is, there's less demand in the market, but if you invest less in sales and marketing, you're also going to get less exposure to the buyers, getting less leads, less opportunities. And so actually this then affects, and you get less sales. And so all this becomes and runs as a spiral, right? So demand crash leads to less sales, cut costs, that cuts sales and marketing costs, leads to less sales, and so on and so on, affected by the, again, that's some good trigger that usually triggers on the VC, on the investment side, that is closed, is not available, also due to this financial effect of the interest rates. So all of this puts in a situation, how do we get out of here? How do we get out of this downward spiral that is affecting the sales and the growth that we're looking for? And definitely it's not about finding easy answers, right? It's not easy, just not because of PLG or not because of inbound or not because of going up market or no, yes, it's the economy, but it's a bit more complex than that, right? And no, it's not just a matter of asking for more leads to go there. So we need to understand, again, go back to the questions, the most important questions. Why did we grow, right? What is happening now? And how do we go back to growth? These are the key questions, right? The key questions that are driving the conversations and the need to be have these conversations at the executive table, right? So let's go back and rewind. 2020, 2022, we grew a lot, right? The market grew a lot, but probably it was not the most healthy growth. So we were serving basically a massive demand in the market. We didn't have to market or to sell. We just ship. It was the years of growth, PLG, demand gen, SEM, CRO, SEO. It was all about capturing the demand, the huge demand that was in the market, right? That was like the sea is full of fish. We just have to take our nets and get the fish out of the sea. Get the search traffic, convert directly into the product that they, for product that they already wanted to buy. In 21, 22, things start, as we saw, just cool down in terms of demand, right? Because of the economy, because of all these effects. So there's less demand in the market, but there's still a lot of money from the funding rounds that were done before. So the budgets are still big, and there was a lot of money being pumped out especially in 2021. And the first part of 2022 into sales and marketing, right? And this, money that is being pumped into acquisition kind of overlooks any growth challenges. We just spend more and more and more and more with fat budgets and diminishing returns. This was pumping dollars into any paid channel to force our way into achieving the goals, right? This was all there is. 2023, everything, the party is over. There's no demand, no big demand, huge demand in the market, no huge marketing budgets. So what do we do? With growing pressure on profitability and the end of PLG and then all these things that we saw before, sales ends up by taking the lead because the marketing budgets are cut. Are the easiest budgets to cut, easier and fastest to cut. So sales takes the lead to both drive inbound demo requests. So there are salespeople available. They get more traffic into demo requests and less product trials, and are also people available to do outbound sales. So we reinforce or kick in outbound sales channels, right, with the hope of finding the demand that we're not seeing in the market. And all of this also to try to get more SEV, to get more profitability. That was the key goal of the moment. Anyway, all of this is not yet getting a lot of the needed results. So 2024, everything is different now. We're heading to 2024. It's important to remember that everything is different now. There's no big demand in the market, no marketing budgets. So what do we do? The challenge now, right, is like we saw before, is efficient growth. To balance growth with efficiency, that means that we need to waste less to achieve more. We need to stop being distracted by going after the wrong customer, promising things we don't excel. While before we had the demand, we had the budgets to go find new targets, new segments, new markets, to extend product market fit, to extend use cases, to both in terms of go-to-market, in terms of product. All of that, there's no money for that. There's no time for that anymore. We need to reset our expectations and go back to the core. Go back to where do we win? Where do we excel, which is on our ideal customer profile in our core positioning, right? Either we know, or we need to find or refine what we have, right? We need to clarify and fix the strategy, these key pillars of strategy, and fixed execution, meaning that consistent delivery from the boardroom to the SDR, everything needs to be consistent. And who are we going after? What are we going to tell them? And how we are going to deliver the value? Making sure everyone is aligned and works in the same direction. This is key, right? Because there's no time and no energy to waste, right? And no budgets to waste. So just remember, one important thing in those conversations, those discussions, what worked before is not going to work anymore. Because what worked before was for the huge demand tide of 2020, 21 that is gone, and for huge budgets of 21 and 22 that are gone, right? We don't have the demand, we don't have the budget. So the game is different now. Conclusion, this is the time for product marketing. This is the time for product marketing strategy. While before it was the time for growth and PLG and demand gen, they took the lead to get all that demand, to get, and squeeze all the demand in the market. Now it's time for us to take the lead, for product marketing really, help everyone understand what happened, what is happening, and how we should inform our strategy, and make sure that everyone is aligned on the core ICP, the core positioning, and how do we deliver that to the marketing. So, and then, the messaging and all that. And remember, most companies have a lot of internal data and internal analysis, but they lack external perspective. Now, what I brought here is also that external perspective. This is an opportunity for product marketing leaders and for product marketing. And if you want to sit at the table, the time is now to help leadership understand what happened, the market conditions, the dynamics, and how that shapes the current company context. And yes, that's a grown-up conversation. And that's the conversation you can lead at the grown-up table. And forget the old discussions about messaging versus copywriting and who's using the messaging or not. It doesn't matter. At the table, the conversation is, how do we get to efficient growth, and what's the best way to do that? And product marketing strategy can inform that. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to be here. I invite you, and I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find my name with orange squares, or use the QR code. And see you later. I hope we can interact later. Thank you. Bye-bye.